All right. So can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Great. All right. So we're going to talk about composition. I know Matt Otto talked a little bit on, I think, Tuesday, but I wanted to give you a different perspective on composition. So, and just kind of piggybacking off of what Matt said, I think it's better to start, especially if you're a beginner, just writing on one chord or two chords or something like that. But as you get more advanced, then you can add more chords. And I want to talk about a concept that I use in my compositions a lot. Um, where and I don't know where I got this term from, but I call them diamond progressions. So diamond progressions are really great because they give a sense of being in a key, um, and it sounds like a vamp. So when you have diamond progressions, that's a good place to start writing. Um, if you're thinking about writing more through composed music. Uh, so the example that I want to play for you to start off is a tune called Inner Swagger. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. Um, and I kind of extended this diamond progression to excuse me to 8 chords instead of 4. Um, so you have this section of music that you compose, and then instead of like in traditional jazz, where we traditional jazz where we just play AABA and solo over that. I think it's a little bit more interesting as a composer to think about through composed material. So I'm going to pull up this Inner Swagger here so that you can see it. Great. Share my screen. All right, so you should be able to see the score now um, of this tune. So I want to talk about each section of the tune, and then I want to get to the diamond progression thing. Um, and once again, if you have any questions as I go along, if something that you don't understand, then just leave it in the chat, and I'll get to it in a second. All right. So this tune is through composed. So as a composer, this is another tool that you can have. I'm not going to go back and talk about the stuff that Matt talked about because that would be redundant. But um, so this tune has an A section. So it's AA, it has a B, it has a C, and then I'm soloing over the A only as my diamond progression. And it's basically 2 diamond progressions. So a diamond progression is simply four chords. So think about it like as a baseball diamond. Like one chord is at home plate, one chord is at first base, one chord is at second base, one chord is at third base, and then back to home. So that just keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. So in this case, I'm thinking about it as like a diamond progression, but just twice as long. So if you want to think about it, home plate, halfway between first base, halfway between second base, uh, and so on. You get the picture. All right. So I write this melody and harmonize it. So typically, you're going to think about it 2 ways. You're going to either come up with your progression first or your melody first. And I'm usually always a melody first type of person. So when I hear a melody in my head, that's where I want to start from the most natural place. And then how I harmonize it suggests the mood that I want to make with the melody. So, for instance, this chord, can you guys hear the piano?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, sorry. Right? So that's how I wanted to harmonize it. So da 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 da. That melody, I heard that melody before I put any chords to it. So if you're actually hearing it, that's going to be the strongest melody that you can come up with, as opposed to, okay, like what key am I in right now? Um, I mean, it says three flats in the key signature, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm in a key, because as you can see, there are a lot of accidentals that happen. So I'm shifting keys here with my melody. But what's important is you notice the common tones in the melody, right? So you have this da up top, right? Throughout all the chords. And then goes down. Right? So, and then in the lower part of the melody, if you analyze it, look how it's moving down. So da 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 da. It's got this nice voice leading in the melody. Like you can hear the top voice and how the lower voice of the melody is moving. But as I'm writing that, I'm not necessarily thinking, all right, I got to have a common tone here and a lower voice that moves with nice voice leading. It's just that the more you write music, the better melodies you will come up with. So I would encourage you guys to write a little bit every day and just start improvising and see what you come up with. Um, and as your theoretical knowledge gets better and your ear gets better, you will come up with better musical ideas. Um, or another way to approach this is sometimes to write out a progression and then write a melody to it, or write come up with a progression and then sing what you hear over the progression as your melody. All right. So we move on. B section here. Kind of change the mood to a more lyrical melody. Uh, and then this diamond progression right here. So let's take a look at this diamond progression. So this is how my bass is moving. All right. So that bass melody is a pretty strong melody on its own. It sounds very sinister to me. Like when I hear this bass melody, it's like instead of something like or has a different feeling, right? So now, oh, sorry, I switched my octave there. So that's the vibe that I'm setting up, and I actually start soloing over this diamond progression that we're talking about, and then it transitions into the A solo over the A, which is like a double diamond progression. All right. So I'm just gonna play up to that point so you can hear this in context. So now it trades off to a piano solo. So we're just soloing over this vamp. And I feel like vamps are a very powerful tool to like lock your audience and listener in to something that a form soloing over a whole form can be a little bit harder for a listener to grab onto. I think that's why jazz in particular, some people or the normal person may find it hard to listen to is because of the long song forms. So this is a tool that I use in a lot of my compositions, and I encourage you guys to do so too, to create these vamps so that you take the listener on a journey. So this is like a conceptual thing. So I had the melody, right? And then we solo. Instead of soloing over this whole form, A, B, C, I just use the A. And even though these chords are not in the key, right? Not in a key, it still sounds to the listener, I would hope, like we're in a key, even though the chords are moving around. The first two chords, right? Those are both E flat major, then F sharp, then D. Now we're in C, B minor, B flat, C major. So none of those chords are related to each other, but because of the voice leading, right? Very strong voice leading, right? That's one of the thirds. That's if I started on the seventh, and it's either a third or seventh. And then let's just say I started on the other one. So now I've got right? So really clean voice leading. And if you put those two together, right? Without the bass, it's even really strong. So how do I create strong harmony? I create strong harmony by making sure that my inner voices are strong and have nice voice leading. What do I mean by nice voice leading? I mean that the chord tones or the guide tones only move by half step or whole step at the most. That's going to be really smooth voice leading. That's why a 2-5-1 sounds great because you know guide tones, one stays the same and one moves a half step. And then one moves a half step again. So it's not magic why 251 sounds great, because it has great voice leading in the guide tones. And then also making sure that your bass has a very strong melody as well. What do I mean by a strong melody? Bass tends to like to move in fourths and fifths. It's how the instrument is designed, right? You know, E, A, D, G on the upright bass. So the bass likes to move in this way. And therefore, when we talked about the overtone series and how fourths and fifths, in particular perfect fifths, are the strongest because they are the first two intervals in the overtone series. And so they add stability. All right, sorry about that. So they add stability. Let me check the chat here. If I can, I'll stop sharing my screen so I can see the chat. All right. Okay. No questions so far? No questions.
I put one in the chat.
Okay. Is it okay if your melody is a guide tone? Like if you purposefully make the chord match the melody? Well, yeah, the chord definitely has to match the melody. Right? You can have passing tones that are non-chord tones. So for instance, if I go back to sharing my screen here. All right, so now you can see my screen. If I go back to sharing my screen, so G minor 7 sharp 5. What does that mean? So that means that I have a G in the bass, I have a minor third, and I have a flat 7, first of all. Now, the fifth, which is D, I have to sharp that. So now I have, so that's what a G minor 7 sharp 5 sounds like. And if you look, what are my two melody notes? B flat and E flat. So that's the minor third and the sharp 5. All right, let's continue. Then a brief 8th note on the third. Oh, look at that. A flat is a third of F minor. E flat, the next note, is the 7th. B flat is the 4th, right? So that's not a chord tone, but it's still in the key. Oh, what about this A natural on the and of 4? Notice that the chord is F minor, but there's an A natural there. The reason why that works is because it's just a passing tone, because it's going to A flat in the next measure, and it's on an upbeat. So you always, when you're writing your melodies, you want to make sure that if you have chord tones, that they are on the downbeat, because if not, you may be implying other harmony. Because how we listen to music, we hear, chord tones on the downbeat. That's what the melody says. So, and as you can see, my melody here is completely guide tones, right? It's completely guide tones so far. Let's take a look. The next measure, the A flat, E major 7 sharp 11. So A flat is enharmonic to G sharp, right, which is a third of E major, and then E flat is enharmonic to D sharp, which is the major 7. So there, once again, I have this, guide tone melody. It's essentially a guide tone melody. That's why it sounds so strong to the listener. But once again, as I'm composing, I'm not really thinking about that. Through analysis, we can go back and look and say, oh, like, cool, he's got this moving guide tone line down his melody. But what if I wanted to harmonize this differently? Like, what if I had, now if I had, What if I wanted my first chord to be A flat 13 sus, and then my next chord, right? Now it's a different tune. Uh, the keyboard that I'm working with only has 2 octaves, so it's really hard to do this. But you get it. I can reharmonize it in a different way and change the mood of the piece. All right. So let's. I hope that answered your question. Let me know if it did, Noah. All right. So let's
Yeah.
talk about how I came up with this progression. So getting into the diamond progression thing. All right. So remember how I talked about your voice leading has to be strong? I told you what voice leading was. Your bass melody has to be strong. Now, if for something to sound strong to the listener, you won't find this in any book, but this is what I've come up with personally for my own harmonic approach. Because you notice there's not like a lot of 2-5-1s. There's not a lot of 5 going to 1. This is like really modern sounding jazz harmony. Uh, if one thing is weak, then something else must be really strong. Actually, 2 things must be strong if one thing is weak. So weak bass movements are stepwise in thirds, um, stepwise and in thirds. So we want the bass to move in fourths and fifths. But as you notice here, none of these root movements are moving in fourths or fifths. The first one is a whole step. The second one is a half step. Whole step, half step, half step, whole step, right? So that doesn't really draw you into a key. It almost sounds random as you're listening to it. But I've established the melody to this section to the listener. So da 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 that part. So that's strong. It's already in your ear. And then my voice leading is strong, right? My voice leading is strong. So when you combine those two, really smooth voice leading. All right. Then I use to get out of the solo, I use this section, the B section, to transition into a new section. Now we're at letter D, and I decide to change the meter. Once again, I didn't force this meter change. It's actually what I was hearing. And I can't stress enough to write what you are literally hearing, because if not, it will come off as fake to the listener. Because sometimes you can listen to people that compose music and they use all the right notes and rhythm and cool hip things, but it doesn't sound natural. And if you don't write in this way, no one will want to listen to your music, because we want to listen to music that feels natural to us. um, and I'm talking about just people, right? Sometimes musicians, we're impressed by somebody's technique if they write this crazy melody that's like, super fast, or like playing Donna Lee at like, 400 beats a minute. But Donna Lee is a really great melody, right? Strong, leading down to the third of that next measure. It's like a guy tone, like da. I'm sorry, da da da. It's got that strong voice leading movement in it. So what I'm saying is that's a strong melody. So always make sure that you have those characteristics in there. All right. So now we're to the new part of the tune. So I'm gonna let you listen to that now. This is Sam. If you guys don't know who Sam Harris is, he's a fantastic piano player. He plays a lot with Ambrose Akamusiri. And so this is his solo over the section. I'm going to skip to the end of it here, and then the transition. But if you want to go back and listen to it, it's a really incredible solo. You know what? Let's just listen to it. So let's I don't know if you heard that, but the bass player Aiden Carroll, who's a fantastic bass player, he started playing some different roots to the chord. So he was using substitutions, and watch how the mood changes in the piece. Listen this time. So once again, notice how the piano solo built up to the next transitional material. So far, this piece has been slowly building. You've gone on a journey here. Oh, here's some questions. Henry Crest, in a diamond progression, do you think of resolving it to the home bass chord, or is it more like a loopable progression? It's actually, yeah, both. But as the listener, that first chord you're going to kind of hear is home, right? Even though this isn't really like a tonic chord, minor 7, sharp 5, it still feels like when you listen to it, that is home, right? Because I've established that loopable progression, as you're saying, right? So we're going to all kind of construct a diamond progression here in a second. Also, how do you feel melodies in odd time signatures? That ending is so dope. Thank you. So yeah, literally, I'm telling you guys, like, literally, this is just what I was singing. Like, one day I was, thinking about this tune, and I was like, man, I don't feel like it's finished. Like, it needs, it needs something a little more like a solid ending. And I was just playing the chorus to that previous section, and then I don't know, like, this melody just popped in my head. Da dee doo da. And then I was like, oh, I like that. I like that. So I figured out what it was. I wrote it down. And then I was like, oh, man, this is in 13. Great. But because that was naturally what I was hearing, it sounds seamless and it sounds like it's a part of the song. As opposed to if I was like, man, this song sounds like it needs an ending. Now I'm gonna just like write something in 13 because I think like all my musician friends would think it's really cool that I can play in 13, right? So it's always what you're hearing. Melody comes first, and then everything else uh, come second. So so I came up with that melody and then I harmonized it. And if you notice, when you listen to this first chord, B flat major triad in first inversion, B flat over D. Those chords to me sound like very bright and like the sun is coming out. So with this change in melody, I wanted to have that feeling of, home and like brightness and happiness. So that's why the first chord is that. Right? I've never heard of this song, Sam. Bulgarian Bulge. Its time is 33:16. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Never heard of it. Nope. Sorry. I'll have to check it out. Yeah. So once again, yeah, variation between strong and weak bass motion. Yeah, that's the key to making your song sound modern. If you're trying to deal with like non-functional harmony, you still have to balance it out with strong and weak movements. But your voice leading has always got to be smooth. If not, it's not going to sound like a progression, and it's going to sound bad, for lack of a better word. So if you don't have those inner voices moving and half steps and whole steps are staying the same, which is even better, then it's not going to sound like a progression. It's just going to sound like random chords. So that's how I keep the progressions fresh. I mean, I have like kind of my own system, because I don't really see people writing a lot of progressions similar to mine. I think that's what gives my music a different feel that's personal to me. But I'm always thinking about it in that way. Is all right, how do I want to color this melody and in a strong way? So the melody kind of sounds like it's in a key for the most part. Da dee doo da. That sounds like 1 3 1 4, and then it jumps to a different key. Ba-do-ba-dee. Now we're in G flat, right? G flat major clearly leads up to that. G flat major using the F altered chord there. Sorry. Right. So that's how I keep the progressions fresh. All right. So then I use this section, this double diamond progression, if you want to think about it that way, as a trade-off between two saxophones. One of them is teaching in the other room right now, Adam Larson on tenor and Logan Richardson on alto. So this is them trading off. All right. So that's that. Any oh, we got some chat stuff here. How do you finish compositions? I feel I have some good ideas, but they never come to fruition. It's just a battle of attrition. Or is there a tip you have to keep advancing your ideas? Yeah, just keep writing, man. Just do a little bit every day. There's a great book called The War of Art, and it talks about how if you do something every day, you're gonna have bad ideas and you're gonna have good ideas. But the more you do it, the more days you will have. Um, you will have good ideas. And it talks about resistance. So we actually need resistance in life, uh, because like without resistance, a plane couldn't fly. Like without resistance, you couldn't, pluck a bass string and have it make sound. Like we need all of that, right? So you have to fight through the resistance. So just sometimes it's okay to like this is the only time I would say to force an idea, just to write something. And if it doesn't feel like it's going naturally to the next thing or doesn't feel done, stop it, put it away, and then force yourself to write something else. um, and then when you do that, you will just maybe like one day it'll come back to you, the tune that you've been working on, and you'll say, oh, I have an idea of how to finish this tune. I'm hearing it right now in this moment. I got to write it down. So that's usually how I deal with it. I don't ever force myself. The only way that I've ever forced myself is to write something new if I have writer's block. And as far as finishing the compositions, I feel like they're never finished. Um, like they may be finished for this moment, but maybe 20 years from now, I'll come back and do something different with this tune. What do you mean about attrition endurance? I like going through one idea after another. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I answered that, Noah. Yeah. So yeah, man, just never force it. So don't power through in the for the sake of like finishing this composition, because it's not gonna sound good, man. Trust me. Like it never. People know. Like when you meet someone initially and they're talking to you and they're BSing you, like it immediately. Like you're like, this guy's full of crap. Like you know and so people are going to hear that in your music. That's why certain people, when they write music, people love listening to their music. Other musicians love playing it. Like That's what I'm writing music for. That's going to be fun for musicians, but also great for people listening to it. Uh, it's more like completing a thought or combining different thoughts to make a complete thought. Yes. What kind of mentality do you put yourself in to write? Is there a physical space, a drink while you have composing? Uh, your music is always a fun time, I'll add. Yeah, I mean, I put myself in a space to write something every day. Um, and just like come up, maybe it's just two measures, like, or maybe sometimes I've sat down and like wrote a whole song in like a few minutes, like the song Facing East. That song, it was like 15 minutes. I just was hearing that bass line for whatever reason, right? And I started there, heard that melody over top of that bass line, and then it just like the tune happened. And then sometimes it'll be like this tune, Inner Swagger. I had that melody in my head and I actually sang it into my phone. Um, and then I was just stuck on those 8 bars. And then like a year later, I was going through my phone and I came back and I heard that melody again. Um, and then the tune wrote itself. So, there's no set way. Like if you can see, probably can't see my screen because of this light, but I've got like probably like 100 voice memos of me like singing something into my phone, um, singing them into my phone so that if I'm like driving or something and I don't have a piano, I'll just sing the idea into the phone. And then sometimes I'll just randomly go through there and listen to it and then be like, oh, I like that. Like, let's see. I don't know what this is. Oh, God, yeah. Okay. No. This could be something for like a trio with me and Mitch and Marty. Like one, two, three, four, boom, 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 boom. So here's one. So I literally had this idea in my head, and I was thinking someone is in the waiting room. Oh, let's see. Oh, okay, Ruby, signed to break it. Thank you. Okay, cool. So I literally had this idea, and I thought of two musicians that it would be for. So I'm just gonna stick my phone to the microphone and let you hear what I'm talking about. This is funny. So this is what I'll do sometimes. Like one, two, three, four, boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. And then like boom, like that G could be held out throughout all the chords, whatever the chord's gonna be. But that's just that thing. Cool. So that's me like reminding myself of the feel of the thing. Your brother's in the waiting room. He's just gonna have to wait because I can't leave this room and come back. That's why it's like important for everyone to get here at 10. Uh, let's see, maybe. Yeah, I can't do it. Sorry. Just let your brother know to hang on for like 5 more minutes. So yeah, that idea. Let's see. So like I'm hearing that, I'm thinking about some drums like kind of like a very hard swinging like Elvin Jones triplet thing going on. So that's why I'm thinking of Marty Morrison. If you guys don't know who Marty is like probably one of the swingingest drummers ever. Like, um, so check him out. Um, and then I'm hearing over that. Something like I would just play that. So man, something like that. That might be my melody. And I'll be like, I'll assess that, see how I feel about it. And I'm like, I don't really like that. So maybe I play it again and then think of something else. Or I might like put that into Logic, you know, and just sing over it. And then when I get a melody that I really like and I think is strong, then that's the melody. Cool. All right. So what I want to encourage you to do um, during your lunch break, just take like 15 minutes, and I want you guys to come up with a 4-chord diamond progression. We have a thing in the chat. You play trombone, right? How many horns do you have, and how do you go about finding a new horn? When you choose a horn to play, what should you look for? Yeah, I play the trombone. I mean, I have a different setup than most jazz musicians. I have kind of the same setup as somebody like Slide Hampton does, or Robin Eubanks. So they play large bore orchestral trombones, but in a jazz setting. Most trombonists play smaller horns. So I go for like a 547 bore, which is large bore. And I like rose brass because rose brass sounds bright when you play loud, but when you play medium and soft volumes, it sounds super dark. And so I like for my tone to be really dark as opposed to bright. But if I want that bright sound in a particular moment, I can really put a lot of air behind it and make it bright. So that's why I do it. So and just find a trombone that's like that. I have an endorsement with a company here in Kansas City called BAC. So they made me a custom trombone for free because I'm an artist for them. So that's the company that I'm contracted to play through. But I love their instruments before I was even an artist. So it just lucked out for me in that way. All right, so getting back to the diamond progression thing, I want you guys to come up with a four chord diamond progression. All right. And then at the end of the camp, I want you guys to maybe share in the chat what you came up with. And then you should start there with composition, just writing something over those 4 bars. All right. Or come up with a 4-bar melody and put a diamond progression to it. All right. So let's say, for instance, I'm going to show you my process of how I would do it. All right. So just so you guys can see this. New, close, save. Oh, yeah. Drummers should come up with one too. One of the best composers that I really like is a drummer by the name of Brian Blade. He writes beautiful music, and he is a drummer, and he's also my favorite musician. So yeah, drummers need to have a little understanding of harmony and melody too, because you're playing melodically on your drum set as well. Some drummers think about that in particular, like when you're soloing. Um, it's great to have like all kinds of chops and like all of that, but um, drummers who play with melody and pace, they always have the most interesting solos to me. And if you listen to Brian Blade, um, which maybe like in between classes or right after lunch, I'll play you a video of a great Brian Blade solo. And yeah, he's really amazing. So drummers write too. It could be really simple. It could be something like, here's my bass melody. I gotta share that with you guys. Share my screen so you can see what I'm doing. So that's what I said. Share my screen. Cause that's what I'm doing. So that's gonna be my melody. Can you guys hear that?
Yeah, we hear that.
Okay, great. This is annoying because I can't see my. Sorry. That's it. I'm gonna put that higher too. So that's my little melody that I came up with. Now, so I might be thinking, all right, what do I need to add to that? So I want to come up with my bass melody second. All right. So let me pick a bass here really quick. Bass, upright bass. So now I'm just gonna play this. Let me loop it. This is so annoying with the screen share. All right, here we go. So I'm just listening to my melody to try to get the mood that I want to be in. So now that's what I want. I was hearing something like on beat 4 with the bass changing. All right, so I don't really like when I went to B flat, so I'm gonna change that. All right, so now I like that. I like that going to F sharp there, like I did. Let me just change that. So now I know what my bass melody is, and with a melody, that's going to tell me what chords to pick. So now. So now that's my diamond progression to my melody. So I came up with a melody first, and then I harmonized that melody by what I was hearing. So without getting into too much theory, yeah, just play what you're hearing. And how do you hear better? You study harmony theory and listen to music more. All right. So my diamond progression would be C minor, D flat major 7, F sharp major 7, sharp 11, G7 alternate. Right. So then, just to kind of get my feel here. And then you could like improvise, over this progression. Um, you can improvise over this progression or whatever. And maybe you'll come up with a better melody. So then I would just put this like this, and then have fun with that, right? And then you may hear something else like, okay, I got 4 bars, that's cool. Like, what's next? And through improvising, you will come up with something naturally. It may take you 30 seconds, it may take you a year, right? But that's how I would encourage you to do it. Cool. All right. So we're going to go back to the main room now. Thank you guys so much. If you have any questions, you can ask me in the chat. All right. But that's kind of my process of how I compose a diamond progression. Hey, Eddie, what's up, man?
Play again. There we go.
Hey, Eddie, are you there?
Marcus, what's popping? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, man.
What?
Ask him how are drums.
Oh, I thought you said ask him how drums and play and then play. Sorry. How the drums sound, Marcus?
Sound great.
I got it.
The game is what we're in.
Hey Marcus, can you turn on that other camera for him? You don't want to see me.
So I see. Oh,
Oh, I'm looking up here.
All right, hold up. I got you.
Noise.
There.
Okay. Yeah. I
Can
see.
everybody see me? We in here. Reach out and touch somebody's camera.
All right. So I can see you now, Zach. So you can go ahead and start whenever you're ready, man. I can't hear you. Hey, Zach, I can't hear you at all. It was fine, whatever you were doing before. Hey, Eddie, can you hear me? What's going on? Yeah, but we can't hear Zach or you. Yeah, Eddie,
How about now? Can y'all hear me?
yeah, you had your volume muted, Eddie.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
All right, the floor is yours, Sir Zachary.
Noise. Good morning, everyone. And you are tuning in to Future Jazz Virtual Workshop. My name is Zachary Morrow, Zach B. Morrow on certain platforms. I'll be going over time, groove, and feel today. Marcus, did you say something? I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, okay, cool. We're gonna get it rolling. So we're gonna focus on time, groove, and feel. Before I get to that, I want to say just my best wishes to everybody. I hope everybody's doing really well. Actually, it's a little latency. Hope everybody's doing really well. Hope people are still able to find peace and joy even in these crazy situations. Keep the Most High first. Love one another, love yourselves, and let's just make things better. And take precautionary measures. Take care of yourselves. Wash your hands, all that stuff. Mask up. And so today we're going to be focusing on time and groove and feel. Some things I want to talk about first. As far as the band goes, I've always looked at a whole band in general, as a family. And so, like, horn players, rhythm section, they have their differences. So horn players are kind of like the cousins of the group. The rhythm section would be like brothers, sisters, whatever. And then the bass player and the drummer, those are two of the most important. To me, they're like twins. So they have each individual role that they're supposed to do and accomplish. And, one goes off one another. Eddie had made a analogy yesterday. It was perfect about Mickey Mouse, how he looks at the bass player as pretty much like the whole canvas. So he looks at him like the background and everything that's moving. Mickey would be the person that's soloing and everything like that. And then Eddie and I'm on drums. Eddie or anybody that's on keys, guitar, whatever. We're kind of those things that Mickey would leap over and stuff like that. So just to show how important the bass is just in general, if you look at shows like Seinfeld, Blue's Clues, those are like the main instruments that you'll hear. So it's always important to be really on lock and in pocket with the bassist. So I'll just give a couple ideas, some different grooves, different things like that. We'll even put rudiments within it and everything like that. So we'll go from there. I kind of needed Eddie for a song, but we'll just go somewhere else. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to display is the mic on. Oh, nice. Can everybody hear me now? Yeah. Cool. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to display, just a regular groove, and then I'm going to incorporate some different styles, different artists and producers, and kind of how they flip certain tracks, maybe have the snare come back a little bit, maybe the hi-hat go forward and stuff like that. So here's just a regular one, and here we go. Behind the screen. But so that's just the basic feel. I'm gonna now incorporate kind of some 16th notes with the bass drum, and then we'll keep going from there. So that's the groove, 16th notes. Now, certain producers, like Ninth Wonder, for example, DJ Premier, Dilla, guys like those, they like to put things, certain beats or certain instruments behind one another. So I'll do something Ninth Wonder does. He closes the gap a little bit between his 6 notes with his bass drum, but everything stays the same. So the kick or the snare and the hi-hat is going to stay consistent, but the bass is kind of going to lag a little bit. You'll see what I mean. Like a Ninth Wonder pattern, what he would do with the bass. Now you have people like Dilla who may either speed up or slow down what's going on with the hi-hat. And so the hi-hat is also the drummer's metronome as well. And so we'll get to that as well, but here's a Dilla example. Notice it's behind. Put it forward. And so that's what happens when you put it forward a little bit. Now, Eddie, can you play that ninth example? I'm going to do an incorporation of what a regular beat would be, what you would do if you were to throw in some examples of kind of like Ninth and DJ Premier, Dilla, other people, just different styles incorporated into a track.
Yeah, Ninth Wonder on the beat. I can't front, that's why I beast. It's your Kanye to the. Yeah, Ninth Wonder on the beat. I can't front, that's why I beast. It's your boy Kanye to the. Yeah, Ninth Wonder on the beat. I can't front, that's why I beast. It's your boy Kanye to the. Yeah, Ninth Wonder on the beat.
Dilla.
I can't front, that's why I beast. It's your boy Kanye to the. Yeah, Ninth Wonder on the beat. I can't front, that's why I beast. It's your boy Kanye to the. Yeah, Ninth Wonder on the beat. I can't front, that's why I beast. It's your boy Kanye to the.
And that's that. I'm sorry if y'all saw me laughing. Eddie is going crazy. He's doing what I would normally do. So one thing I wanted to say in the intro is make sure you stretch. I didn't stretch my neck, but I know I need to. It's probably going to hurt, but we're all good. We're going to keep it going. So one thing that I did mention was rudiments and how you can incorporate that with some grooves as well. So we'll take paradiddles, right, left, right, left, left. So I'll play that on the snare, and then I'll incorporate that into a beat and show you what I mean. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is put it in between the hi-hat and the snare. And so I'll play it all out, and then you'll be able to hear everything. A little faster. So now we're going to ghost note certain notes or certain hits and everything. You can just do different patterns, different variations. But here's an example of what you could do. So I'm gonna do the regular beat, what I just did, and then I'm gonna break it down into another groove, but just do ghost notes. Same thing, same rudiments. I'm not changing any sticking, but just certain different dynamics you want to put in it. All right. A little slower. And now we're gonna move it around a little bit. I'll move what I just did. I'll put majority of that on the hi-hat, still ghost noting some stuff. I'll mess around and do kind of different variations with the bass drum, but it's all super simple in the long run. Just stay with rudiments. Just focus on different rudiments. See what all you can incorporate, whether it be a beat, feel, F-I-L-L, not F-E-E-L, but would it be a feel like that, groove, whatever. So yeah, so I'll do that with the hi-hat. A little slower. So that's how you go in and incorporate the rudiments with that. Is there any questions, Eddie, by chance?
Hey Zach, for whatever reason, your video went away.
Okay. Give me a quick second. Sorry about that.
Oh wow, it's almost dead. I got you. Don't worry. Do your thing.
Okay. Do you want me to redo that part one more time, Marcus?
No, it's fine.
Say that one more time. I couldn't hear you.
It's fine. You can just go on.
Okay. Yeah, let me get that. Whenever you get the chance, I'm gonna do that other track. So before Eddie plays this one track, about one thing about feel, F-E-E-L and not F-I-L-L. One thing that you want to do is, the main thing about it is being felt and not heard. So it's some type of grooves. I will. Yeah. So it's certain type of grooves and it's placement for everything. So sometimes the drummer is the supporting cast, or a lot of the times the drummer can be the supporting cast, but sometimes you want to keep it very simple and let others shine. So whether it be a singer, rapper, someone playing a horn, or, you know, vibraphones, whatever, whoever the soloist may be at the time, sometimes it's good to just keep a simple groove and make that happen. You need help with that?
No.
Good. Okay. So sometimes it's good to keep a simple groove with that. We're going to have that coming up in a little bit. But one thing Eddie did mention was dynamics. And one thing I had to learn as a drummer was energy, and maintaining energy and learning how to control that. And so it's certain times where, as a drummer, we want to go off just because it's super fun. Why not? You know, but a lot of the times that's not musical. So there's a certain time and place for everything. So with that being said, as far as dynamics, what Eddie mentioned is great for the energy to be felt and not heard. So energy doesn't always mean going like 8, you know, whatever, like just going crazy, going balls to the wall, whatever, and going all out. Sometimes you want to preserve that. and let others shine as well, and just be a good supporting cast. So I'm gonna play an example of a song called Crowns for Kings, just like maybe 15, 20 seconds of it. You're gonna hear just the simplicity of the drum. The drum beat is this. Very simple, sounds cool by itself, but with other stuff and other different grooves, textures, and colors that come along with it, it is bananas. So check this out. Check what the drummer does and hear how he supports by just laying the groove down. He's not really heard, but he's felt. Can you play that for
me? Every king will be crowned. Let's go. Yo, when we was hooked in the hood, getting booked like literature kept us shook. Like when the boogeyman come in to get you, we was crooks. Try to cop more rides and great adventure. Any image we took, not a father was in the picture. There was times, not a bite nor swallow was in the kitchen. Real made an industry out of their intuition, facing the darkest outcome, sprinting the outcome.
All right, so first of all, sometimes there is not a bite or a swallow in the kitchen. I don't think y'all hearing me. But anyway, that was incredible. And so that just shows you that being felt sometimes is being better than heard. So if the drummer was going crazy, that means the vocalist is going to have to even go, crazier and just to, out hear him. So that kind of balance that becomes an argument on stage, and that's something you don't want. Another thing about fills, F-E-E-L-S, one thing you can do to replace F-I-L-L-S fills, instead of doing drum rolls and stuff to end on like one with the cymbal and whatnot, set that up, you can leave one out, keep going, maybe add stuff on later on, maybe do an accent on the end of one or two, something like that. Instead of hitting the crash, go for a ride, things of that nature. So I'll play a couple examples of things you could do. So it's kind of like with certain fills, with the fill, F-E-E-L, you want to keep it simple. But then if you throw fills, F-I-L-L-S in there, you want to put it out there, get it out the way, but it has to make sense. You don't want to just do random things. So I'll play a couple examples of some things you can do, different incorporations you can put in there, stuff like that. Here we go. Instead of doing that, try something like this. You notice some of those, I barely did anything, but as soon as I, put it out there, it's like you take it away, go back to the groove. Even times you can leave out a pause, just a quick, maybe for a beat, 2 count, something like that. So I'll do something like that along with everything else that I've been incorporating. So here it is. And so that's how you can do different things. Just all about being felt. And with time, it's always good to hold on, let me fix this mic. It's always good to lock with the bass, like I've said earlier. You don't want to rush things, and a lot of times with dynamics, if you're playing very loud or very energetic, we all have a tendency. I know I have for sure. We all have a tendency to speed up, and so life is not, hello, good morning. I'm trying to have a good time. It's all about taking time and making sure everything that you say is precise, heard, and well. So instead of hello, I'm trying to have a good time, you could say hello, good morning. I'm just trying to have a good time, stuff like that. So if I was to incorporate that on the drums, it sounds something like this is the fast one. It's fast, but sometimes when you have that much energy, you have to know how to control that and make it, feel good and just have that time there. So we're going to have a groove here. Same thing I said, hello, good morning. I'm just trying to have a good time. Hello, good morning. I'm just trying to have a good time. So with that being said, I'm going to say hello, good morning. I'm trying to have a good time. I'm going to play that out on the hi-hat and just show you just to keep the groove, the time, the feel. It's going to be all right there. Energy is still there, but you want to make sure that it's consistent, persistent, precise, and right on point. So here we go. Something like that. So yeah, is there any questions that anybody has?
I have one.
We have one.
So you're talking about.
They can't hear him, but okay, here's one.
Sorry, I'm in the room, so I got a question I think will help. Just one thing for me. So you're talking about time and feel, and then being precise with it. How do you practice that? Do you practice that with the metronome, or how do you practice that with the metronome or something that holds you accountable for time? Since I might not be able to play with anyone all the time. You know what I mean?
Playing with the metronome is great. I've always just growing up, I started playing with other tracks. Then I was able to pick up tendencies from other drummers, certain things they did, certain feels they would do. I noticed, when others were solo, sometimes they may lay out or anything like that. But it's all about just really listening to the track. The tempo is going to be there. The bass player and the drummer pretty much on every song, that's the locking key right there. So in order to practice that and get the time right, I think you should practice with other songs as well as the metronome. I found that helping or practicing with other songs, that's pretty much better than a metronome, in my opinion, because it's different times going on, but they're all on the same time. So you're going to hear eighth notes, you're going to hear quarter notes, you're going to hear some 16th notes, maybe 32nd notes, whatever. That's just going to make it keeping time like that. So I think definitely practicing with different songs, different tracks, not only just hip hop, whatever. You can practice, transcribing with jazz, rock tunes, some classical ones. You'll never know what you find out of there. So I think to really get the time and the feel of everything, practice with as many songs as you can, your favorite songs, and go from there. Anybody else type one out? Okay.
I got one for you though.
Okay.
Cause I mean,
Yeah, why not?
So you're talking about that. So does that change for odd meter, or how do you address odd? I put a question in here. So it's does that change with odd meter, and or what is your approach to odd meter, and how do you communicate with the other band members with those types of feels? Could you demonstrate a little bit of that?
So with odd meter, I'll just tell you, everybody's different. And so I always think hip hop, even if it comes to jazz. So if we're doing something in 7, um, you know, I kind of think of what kind of hip hop I can do, and then it's just all about counting. So I'll do a quick example of that. We'll play something in 7. I'll show you kind of how I break it down. But I'll play it in the hip hop groove and then play it in a regular 7th groove. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's how I would hear it. And so I kind of feel like that's the most basic form because it's just 2 and 4 completely through. But then once you do some counting, you just got to start back over. So now if you incorporate, you know, a different type of groove, here's what it would sound like. Same tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, cool. So that's how you would do that. And also, if you notice how with some of the fills, instead of going on 1, you heard me do like the time on and the 2, you know, something like that, or you know, do instead of a crash, go for a bell. So stuff like that. So, is there any other questions on there?
When did you start playing?
When did I start playing? I started playing when I was 2. Um, I saw my pops. He was playing at church. He's not a professional musician, but just played to keep a beat. And my mom sang in the choir for fun. And then I think I started taking lessons at like 3 and 4. I was entering drum contests in 4 and stuff like that. I didn't really take it serious until about high school once I found out I can actually travel, leave, leave home, make money some other places, go visit different exotic places and stuff like that. So I didn't take it serious in high school, but the drumsticks were put in my hand at a very early age. There is also footage of me playing at the age of 2. So if you go on YouTube, type in Zach Morrow, 2 years old, you'll see that. But yeah. So Eddie brought up a great point. He asked, as far as the time and grill or groove, do I keep a home base or do I kind of venture off and how I will expand on it? And so that's when it takes listening. You kind of figure out what other people are doing. You listen to what the bass player is doing, and then as well as whoever you're accompanying. So it may be a time where, a regular groove is going on, and then a piano solo may come, and then you may want to drop out not drop out completely, but certain instruments. So you'll go from playing a groove like say. Then a breakdown. Bring it up. Gonna move to the ride cymbal. So a lot of the beats that I would play are from like a lot of my favorite songs, and a lot of those get, resampled, sampled over, whatever. But then a lot of them get added to it, sometimes taken away. And so there's one song in particular. Nas has used it. I know I can. I think Terrace Martin has used it in a song called Mama D. But the song is called "Impeach the President." But yeah, so I'll play an example of that beat and then show you how I would take some stuff away, but still keep it creative in a way. Oh, I know if they can see my face on there. Okay. So this is "Impeach the President." This is the beat. Slow it down a little bit. And so with that beat, the pickup that the bass has, I'm gonna take one of those out and keep everything the same. And so this is how it will sound. This is the original one, and I'll show you what I'll do. What I'll do. The hi-hat is the same. The bass I just did something with different, but you can play around, do some different variations. I'm gonna move the snare from 2 and 4, move some different spots, but keep this hi-hat the same. And so with every beat that you play or hear, it also doesn't always have to be on 2 and 4 with the snare. So you can do some different variations. You can replace that with either silence or rest. You can replace that with a bass drum. So I'll play a couple different examples. There's a couple questions. Oh, there's a couple questions. I'm sorry.
One question is, who are your influences? Which I think you might have talked about.
The first
Drum
one.
wise.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You're on it.
Okay, yeah. Drum wise, my influences. Justin Tyson is a big one. He's kind of new. Eric Harlan, but some of the guys that were like the very first ones I heard. Dave Weckl was definitely one of them. Tony Royster Jr., Dennis Chambers, Billy Cobham, and then my great uncle Charles Gilbert. He put me on to jazz when I was like maybe 8 or 9, and so he put me on Buddy Rich, Max Roach, Art Blakey, guys like those, Gene Krupa. And so those are some of my influences as well. But musically, my biggest influence is probably Stevie Wonder. He's like the main reason I do music just in general. The first album I ever heard was Talking Book by him. So he's definitely one. Ninth Wonder as far as production, he's a big one. Eddie Moore for sure. He's definitely a gatekeeper. He's laughing right now, but literally, like, I call him like the Miles Davis of this generation because he's not afraid to really, step beyond the boundaries. And when people want him to be something completely different that he's not afraid to speak up and be that powerful to make his own move. So he's doing some big things. I appreciate him in my life as well. But those are some of my biggest influences.
Next question: what are your tips for having interesting Latin grooves? Interesting Latin grooves. Tips for interesting Latin grooves. So then the next question that I would ask is, when you say Latin, specifically, what are we?
Yeah. So I'll ask you I'll answer your question with a question.
Sorry, this is to Henry. I believe Henry's a pianist.
Uncle Henry, what up, man? So I'll ask you, what type of Latin groove? Because are we talking Brazilian, talking like bossa, mambo? Like it's different variations, but
And then say, well, you're giving him a minute to answer that. I'm gonna get the next question. We'll come back. So then the next one is, how do you go bananas while keeping all the subtle? Okay, sorry. He said bosses and sambas. Bosses and sambas. What are some interesting tips for bosses and sambas?
it's a great question. My tip for it would be to listen to as much as you can. Me, that's all I did. There was nothing that I really, I guess, practiced. It's just more a feel, but mine was just more of just listening to certain tracks. Doug Allwater is like the best person to talk to as far as that, and he can point you in the right direction of who to listen to. Okay, and then I'll play a couple examples. So I play a bossa, then okay, I'll play a bossa. I'll play what I play for a bossa. So that's what I would do for a bossa. With that one, you kind of want to think percussion. Don't think drummer. Think overall percussion, like ensemble. So I was doing some stuff where it would sound like certain blocks. I would do things where it would sound like congas, little shakers, whatever, different tambourines and stuff like that, cymbals, timbales. So with bossa and samba or anything Latin related, you want to think less drummer, more percussion ensemble, and see what you can incorporate with that.
He said that's a spicy bossa. So
Thank you, brother.
there's a question from Jade.
Jade, that's my sister's name, so I mess with you.
He goes, how do you go bananas while keeping all the subtle stuff and staying in control?
I said that already, but I love Eddie. Dynamics is all about dynamics. So I can do a couple fills for you and then show you what it would sound like if you was to put dynamics, ghost note a few things in there. But like I said, it's all about feel rather than being heard. So I'll do something like this. Break some of that down, put some dynamics in some of those ghost notes, it'll sound like. So that's how I would do it. With feels, you don't gotta go crazy all the time, but sometimes those feels feel better than the ones that's just like all out there.
Hey Zach, I have a question.
Marcus, I have an answer.
All right. So why is it that when certain drummers play a particular groove and the notes are right, it doesn't sound or feel good? You know what I mean? Like,
He said, why do drummers, he goes, why do drummers, oh man, how I phrase it? He goes, how is it that drummers will play all the right notes, but for some reason it doesn't feel good?
and can he show the difference of like playing a groove that like feels good and then play that same groove but it doesn't feel good, if that's possible for him to like show the difference?
So I'm gonna try to answer it first. So I think what the main thing is, it can be a couple different things. Sometimes the drummer just not listening. It's kind of hard for the feel not to be right if everybody else is, kind of on one accord, but he's doing something different. Mainly the bass drummer or the bass player. So the bass player is like the lock and key for all that stuff. You want to be as tight with him as you can. So it'll be times where the bassist, I wish I had one, but it'll be times where the bassist will have a certain lock groove, perfect feel. He might be doing everything right drummer wise, but for some reason it's not locking up together. So I'll play a couple examples of one groove, kind of sloppy, whatever, and then I'll play another one where you can definitely tell the difference. So. So I'll play a cleaner version of that. And so it'll be certain things that you can lock up. Ghost notes, dynamics, those play a part of it. Same groove though. So that's how you'll want to do that. And remember that out of the whole snare or out of the whole drum, the hi-hat is mainly going to be your metronome. So when different players do 16th notes, 8th notes on there, even with jazz, when you're swinging, you hear this the whole time. Whatever tempo it is, that's there. And so as long as this is locked on, pretty much everything else is going to be. But as long as you're definitely with the bass player, you should have no problem. If you do, keep practicing, keep playing with songs, play softer, listen to what the drummer is actually doing, but then also listen to what everything is going on in the whole arrangement of the song as well.
Talk about the feel for misunderstood.
Ooh, what in particular?
Who turned the light off?
I don't know. Little technical difficulties on the light, but Eddie asked me to do explain a groove that we have called Misunderstood. You want me to just play it, or what are you thinking?
Play it. Talk about the four momentum. I mean, the other thing is it's very heavily bass driven.
Yeah.
I'm not confident.
Okay, yeah.
There's
So
no piano. It's literally just drums and bass.
okay, so in that particular case,
I guess I should play a little bit of it.
play a little bit of it, please. Okay. That would be great. So this is our single entitled "Misunderstood" from We the People. As Eddie said, it's very bass driven. And so I'm on the track. You'll hear me do a couple different things. Hey, can Eddie do a screen shape thing? Share, sorry. Brother Marcus.
He should be able to now.
Okay, noise. So I'm gonna let Eddie play this. I'm explaining what I did and kind of play it out, and we'll go from there. While we're setting it up, do we have anyone else with any questions? If not, speak now within the next 15 to 20 seconds, or forever hold your peace and wait for this masterpiece to play. Marcus, are you hearing any music by chance?
Yes.
Ah, yes.
Okay, now for whatever reason, it's not playing. Yeah, just hit play.
So that was the groove. So what I did in it, and kind of what Marcus asked about. So there's a certain way to play drums, and if you're hitting all the right notes, all the right instruments, but if the dynamics aren't there, it's not gonna sound good. So I'll play everything I played without dynamics. So here we go. Obnoxious, right? Let's make that groovy. Gonna put certain dynamics and ghost notes within the hi-hat. And so what I talked about earlier, when you're playing, you can drop some things out, come out for maybe a bar or two, something like that, which you heard in the recording. And then later on, Eddie was taking a solo, and he went a couple different places. Would it be possible to pull that up? So in this take, or in this part of the song, Eddie is being Eddie and doing Eddie things, going ham. Okay, ham, turkey, and cheese sandwich. But Jason and I are just keeping the groove. So what Eddie was saying, like he said, Mickey Mouse, that's the main character. That's who the soloist is as far as the band. And Jason and I were the background. So everything that's moving around, You know, as he's going and walking and things are moving, that's us. He's doing what he wants to do, and we're just going off that and vice versa. So he's going to play some of that, and I'll explain what I did. Quick second. We're going to get this fixed for you.
Even the category of jazz.
Okay, so with that, can I get a little more on the mic, Eddie? My bad. Yeah. So with that, the more I say, the more aggressive the bass got, the dirtier he got. He got, you know, gritty, more distorted. Sorry. That's when I began to switch to the cymbals, and then Eddie would go to a higher octave instead of going to the regular beat that I did. You know, on 2 and 4, I left, I think, 4 out and just kept stuff on 2 and just added cymbals. So when Eddie was going, this is what I was doing. Yes, anybody have any last minute questions? If not, I want to thank everybody for joining in, taking the time out, you know, chilling with us, grooving with us. Thank you for everything. Thank you for Marcus Lewis and everybody that's a part of the Future Jazz Workshop. You know, we hope to just keep people encouraged, keep people going, keep spirits motivated, keep it up high. Whatever you took from this, keep it going. Hit us up. Don't be afraid to ask questions later. Follow us on, you know, each and every one's platform. We're all a team. We're all together. If you want to learn anything, just ask, and we're learning as well. And to be a great communicator, you have to be a great listener, but most of all, you have to be humbled. That is our message. Be open listeners, be sponges, soak up information, but then let it out at the same time and keep it going. Thank you, and you all have a blessed one.
All right, thank you, Zach. Thank you for sharing that with us. And so, guys, we're going to break down for lunch, and I'll see you back at 1 o'clock. Remember, guys, just use a few minutes of those who were in my composition masterclass to come up with a short diamond progression. 4-bar progression or a loop that you can use to springboard your composition. So I want to hear some of those things that you've been doing. Cool. All right. Thanks, guys. Yeah, only 4 bars. Diamond progression. Home plate, first base, second base, third base, back to home plate. Over and over and over. All right. Cool. Thank you, guys. I'll see you in an hour. Thanks, Zach. Thanks, Eddie. Thanks, Tate.
Yeah. Do we I saw something when you sent out the Outlook thing on Monday. Well, the Google Calendar thing. Do we have another thing going on tomorrow?
No.
Okay. It went till June 27th, which is why I was asking.
Oh, yeah. It's just probably a mistake on my part. But, yeah, we're done. We're done at 3 today.
All right, cool.
Cool. All right. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem.
What up? I can barely hear you, man. Can you turn your mic up?
I figured out what it was.
What was it?
I was trying to run this through just the mixer, and it's okay to do that with piano because the signal is strong and direct. But then with drums and bass, I had to I need to compress everything, so I would either need to compress it in this mixer, like a live, to get the sound to boost, because I had all the signals maxed out, but you could hardly hear them. So this time I just ran it through a DAW, like Ableton. I'm running Ableton, and I just kind of like a recording session, just tracked them out and through compression on each channel to isolate and boost, even the microphone, because the mic wasn't even picking up, and it was like everything was maxed out, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I basically put it in Logic or Ableton, and then he's monitoring from Ableton, and I just run my sound from the DAW through Soundflower into the stream. So it's boosted and it's a little bit cleaner.
But yeah, so you're running your Ableton into how you're mixing it into Soundflower, and then
Exactly.
Okay.
I'll screen share this to you and just show you real quick. And it works the same in Logic. I don't know why I don't know. I forgot that step yesterday and just like, oh yeah, this will work. I don't know what I was thinking. It gave me a heart attack. I think so. He should be. I'm gonna do this. So yeah, I have everything. Like here are all the drums, and then I just have everything in, and then I have like I was playing his track from this one, and then I have everything just the compression on everything boosted.
great.
But I have to, I guess, like to do it, just run it through a DAW. I thought it would work with just a regular mixer, and it didn't do it. But hopefully it was good. Shoot, I think it worked.
Yeah, it sounded good.
Awesome. Appreciate you letting us do this and putting this together. It's awesome.
Yeah, man. Thanks for your time. And I'll get those PayPals out today.
Sure. Do your thing.
Cool.
I'll holler at you.
Yeah, I'm trying to go grab some lunch. Yeah, I'll see you.
All right, man. Peace.
Peace.